Karen was sailing away with my boat, a smug smile plastered on her face, like she had just won something. Neighbors stood outside, watching in silence, unsure whether to cheer her on or stay out of it. I remained calm, arms folded, not a flicker of panic on my face. Unlike everyone else, I knew the truth. This wasn't theft, it was a setup. Karen thought she had taken something from me, but every second she spent on that boat brought her closer to the moment when everything would come crashing down on her. I had planned this. Every detail, every move. It was time someone taught Karen what happens when you push the wrong person too far. She thought she was above the law, above the rules, but what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the boat she stole wasn't just bait, it was a trap. And she walked right into it. Let me take you back to how HOA President Karen thought she could steal from me and ended up getting trapped in the process. I'm a retired Navy veteran. After decades of service, I sought peace, so I moved to a quiet lakeside neighborhood with a private dock and a boat I loved more than most people. It was supposed to be calm, quiet, and simple. But then came Karen, the HOA president who thought she ruled the world. She didn't like my boat. She said it was too large, too loud, and didn't fit the community vibe. The thing is, my boat was on my own private property, and it wasn't violating any rules. But that didn't stop Karen. She started sending me fines, warnings, and fake code violations. At first, I laughed it off, then I ignored her. But Karen wasn't the type of woman who backed off. She escalated it until I realized ignoring her wasn't going to work. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one, but on my terms. That's when I decided to set the trap. Karen's obsession with my boat became ridiculous. Almost every week, I'd find a new violation notice taped to my door. None of them valid. Unsightly object on the dock. Unauthorized storage. Excessive noise, even though I hadn't turned on the engine in days. I tried contacting the HOA board directly, but Karen was the board. She'd silenced the few members who disagreed with her and bullied the rest into voting her way. Her power came from fear, and no one dared to push back. She started taking photos of my dock and sending me emails at midnight. Then came the threats. She claimed she'd get my boat removed if I didn't comply. When I asked under what authority, she just smiled and said, "You'll find out soon." That's when I stopped playing by her rules. I filed a quiet complaint with the city and discovered she had already tried to report my boat multiple times. But every report had been dismissed. She was getting desperate. So I gave her what she wanted, a chance to steal it. I installed a small GPS tracker under the hull, hidden deep where no one would find it. I also added a camera on the dock, angled just right to catch everything. The final touch? I placed a laminated legal notice inside the cabin of the boat, stating clearly that moving it without consent would be considered grand theft. With everything in place, I waited. Then one day, I got a call from a neighbor while I was at the hardware store. "Hey, man, someone's towing your boat." I didn't panic. I thanked him, hung up, and smiled. It had begun. I drove home slowly, just in time to see Karen climbing aboard the boat as it floated away from my dock. Her hair blew in the wind, and her face was full of triumph. She had no idea that the boat had been rigged to lose power after 30 minutes of engine time. I had built in a mechanical fail-safe, just enough juice to get her stranded in the middle of the lake. Karen's joyride didn't last long. Half an hour later, I was sipping coffee on my porch, binoculars in hand. I saw the boat stop dead in the water. Karen stood up, waving her arms, confused and panicking. She tried restarting the engine over and over, but nothing worked. She pulled out her phone, likely to call someone, maybe even me. I ignored it and instead called the sheriff. "Hey, I think someone just stole my boat. I've got video evidence, a GPS tracker, and she's still out on the lake." Within 20 minutes, the police boat was out there, sirens off, but moving fast. They approached her calmly, and I watched the whole thing like a movie. Karen stood there, trying to act like she owned the boat, making up some story, probably claiming I had abandoned it. But the officers weren't buying it. I had already emailed them everything: GPS data, footage from the dock camera, and a copy of the legal notice in the cabin. They asked her to step off the boat. She resisted at first, yelling, but eventually climbed onto the police boat. They towed mine back to the dock, nice and smooth. When they brought her to shore, I was already waiting with a cup of tea in my hand and the biggest smile on my face. "What's the matter, Karen? Boat not running right." She screamed at me, called me a liar, a cheat, even a criminal. But the sheriff raised his hand and told her to stop. Ma'am, you were warned. You moved private property without consent, and we have the evidence. They handcuffed her right there in front of half the neighborhood. Everyone had come out by then, watching from lawns and porches. Just like that, the queen of the HOA was reduced to nothing more than a thief in cuffs. The irony? The HOA tried to distance themselves from her immediately. Some of the board members even thanked me quietly for what I did. It turns out, Karen had made a lot of enemies, but no one had dared to stand up to her until now. Karen's arrest made local headlines. HOA president arrested for boat theft was the title flashing across neighborhood Facebook groups and the community bulletin. People couldn't believe it, but I could. I had seen what power did to Karen. She was obsessed with control, and my boat was the one thing she couldn't control. That's what made her snap. The HOA held an emergency meeting a few days later. Karen was officially removed as president, and they issued an apology to me. I could tell it wasn't just for show. They were scared of legal action, bad press, and losing more members, and rightfully so. But I wasn't done. I sued Karen personally for damages, legal fees, emotional distress, and property tampering. My lawyer was a close friend from my Navy days, and he didn't play around. Within weeks, Karen settled to avoid court, paying me a hefty sum and agreeing to stay away from my property. The community slowly returned to normal, and for the first time since moving in, I felt peace. Neighbors started waving at me more. Some even asked if I'd consider joining the new HOA board. I politely declined. I didn't need control. I just wanted my space, and I had earned it. The best part? My boat sailed better than ever after a few tune-ups and updates. I took it out one evening, just me and the sunset. The lake was calm, the air crisp, and everything felt right again. Sometimes, justice isn't about shouting or fighting. It's about patience, planning, and perfect timing. Karen thought she was the smartest person in the room, but she underestimated one thing: experience. Years in the Navy had taught me to think 10 steps ahead. She never had a chance. Karen learned the hard way that stealing isn't just wrong, it's dumb when your victim is smarter than you. She lost her power, her position, and her reputation. The HOA cleaned up its act, and my dock stayed peaceful from that day forward. As for me, I got exactly what I wanted, not revenge, but closure. People sometimes ask me if I regret letting her take the boat. I just laugh and say, let her. I handed her the rope and watched her hang herself. So, if you ever run into someone like Karen, someone who thinks they can take what's yours without consequence, remember this story. Stay calm, think smart, set the trap, because sometimes the best way to beat the HOA is to let them think they've won.